As soon as he saw which side of the bracket he was on, and he realised that he was going to be against either Espeon Garb or Zoroark, he was like, oh, this is not going to be a fun top 4 game.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
right. So I thought the deck actually had a really good matchup for these decks, but there we go.
No, so the ability lock would be something that you'd hope to see, but it isn't actually enough to be able to control the game. The Buzzwole's fine, but they normally have things like psychic attackers. They have the Mew. They play fairly high field blow accounts, and it's going to be a pretty tough series from Marc's point of view. At least in having spoken to him very briefly. So Marc, it looks like he had a couple of mulligans. It seems like a fairly large hand, and is able now to just get the game underway with access to the legendary treasure. Probably going to go grab himself a support for the turn. I think with that hand, he's probably considering I could maybe go into Lele for the Lily. The Lily's not prized. In fact, prices for both sides look pretty fine.
Yeah, there's not too much to argue with here. Marc plays as many as 3 Lele, so obviously just having the 1 prize isn't too much of a big deal. It takes him down to pretty much a standard count of what we see nowadays, which is 2. And then, of course, looking over at Magnus's side, 1 Grass Energy could be a little bit of an issue if Marc is able to keep the Golisopods off the board. But apart from that, just the 1 puzzle piece. But from the way he should draw his cards, his prize cards, it should be the first thing he hits. So not too much of an issue here. Marc just looking into his deck to find that Lily to take his hand all the way up to 8 cards on this first turn.
Yeah, he has access to the Float Stone. He has an energy in hand. He has a non-GX Buzzwole he can bench. So he can actually play down a fair few of his options here to thin his hand out as much as he can, ready to start kind of going, right, draw some cards and get myself set up. Magnus is like, yep, that's how Lily works. You play some cards down, you draw a whole load more.
And we see another energy in here, the Nest Ball. Marc only plays 1 of those. So actually really nice to see that come down. He's able to get himself another Trubbish this turn, making that look really nasty. He's now able to potentially get a Trashalanche and a Garbatoxin out next turn. Yeah, looking really, really good on Marc's setup side of things. Magnus fiddling with his hand, hoping for the same sort of luck on his first turn, but he's still got a couple of seconds left to find out.
He draws for his turn, and it is a counter catcher. He has the Lele in hand, so he has access to the Bridget in a really nice way. Doesn't have to play any items down, which can be really important in this game because we've seen that Trashalanche can still be able to do some things very slowly. And it's a case of very quickly we can kind of work his way through and kind of take some knockouts, but without having to play any items, he's much better off. So we'll be going for one of the Bridget, making sure to do a deck search, obviously extremely important at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, of course, Magnus knows that he needs to play this matchup very, very correctly. Obviously, Marc, a player of that sort of caliber, will punish you for the smallest mistake, so making sure that you know every piece of the pie that you have, and of course, really needing to hit all of the right pieces in this first turn to keep up with Marc's really nice start that he had.
So Benji's gone quiet there because he's just been given a nice card by Lydia, one of his favourite Pokemon. His jaw has dropped, but the Bridget has gone into 3 Zorua this turn, so he is able to kind of start to get into position to draw cards. He's going to attach the DCE and just attack for 60 into the Buzzwole because he knows that, really speaking, there's a lot of cards that he can use like in a really nice manner very early on to try and take some knockouts and put pressure on.
I think the 3 Zorua to start us off is actually correct here as well. I think that being able to draw into as many cards as possible before Garbatoxin is established, although it just has been.
It just happened.
Either way, I still think it was the right play on Magnus's side. He does need to try and get as many cards into his hand as possible in order to do this. However, there is as many as... How many Field Blower is Magnus playing?
I think he's playing 3.
Yeah, so 3 Field Blower, sort of a standard count there for a Zoroark list. There is 1 in hand as well, I believe. So, yeah, able to get rid of that. So he should be quite happy with the fact he will be able to get down Zoroarks this turn, potentially. Marc not too happy about
Marc's
the fact that the
face
Field
there
Blower
was like,
down.
oh, that's a Field Blower. Yep, I've seen a lot of those recently.
I imagine that Marc's face is also like that because he knew that Magnus did the right play. He knew that he went for the 3 Zorua. That is obviously the correct play for Magnus to be able to obviously get that down. So the fact that Marc wasn't able to punish that and stop it from happening obviously is quite frustrating. Magnus drawing 6 off his Cynthia now. Will he be able to hit a Zoroark this turn. It looks like there is one in his hand right there, being able to trade. The Mew EX also in hand.
I was going to say, he has an Evo Soda, and he also has the Mew EX, which means if you can find a DCE off of a couple of these trades, you can actually retreat, use the Mew EX to take the knockout, and really put Marc on the back foot very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think that obviously with this Zoroark deck, it's always really interesting, isn't it? Because if they hit the things they need off trade, the game can start spiraling out of control really, really quickly for the opponent. However, if trade does draw them into cards that aren't very useful, Buzz can start doing Buzzwole things.
That was the quickest discard of a Parallel City I think I've ever seen.
I think that's definitely the right choice.
Of course, but it was
these Trebuchets in play and the Buzzwole. He knows that once this Buzzwole GX goes down, he is going to be down to 4 prize. Magnus is going to be down to 4 prize cards, meaning that Sledgehammer does become active, and of course, going to do some damage on the following turn. So. Definitely a Lele discard there. The Fighting Fury Belt comes down on Garbodor. Quite an interesting one. It shows the desperation from Marc to keep the ability lock on there by attaching the Fighting Fury Belt. Quite scared of the trade ability on Zoroark. And we see another Jet Punch and 30 placed on the bench Zoroark.
Yeah, so what we saw last turn by not playing the Mew is he knows that he can't take the first knockout with a Mew EX. Because that means he goes to 4 prize cards, and Sledgehammer comes in and immediately responds. But in this current state, I'm not entirely sure what options he has. He had the Evo Soda in his hand last turn as well. And chose to hold it just for the 1 turn to try and get another Zoroark out, but now gets to grab it this turn instead. I don't know if he has a Field Blower in hand. I think that might have been one. Yeah, I think that's the second to last card in his hand. So he gets to use trade again this turn, keep drawing cards, take a KO on this Buzzwole. With the Lele is the ideal scenario. If he can do so, he is able to, go down to 4 prize cards. Would require Marc to have Guzma to be able to take out one of the Zoroarks.
Yep. And he hits Field Blower again. That is absolutely huge. Marc's face of despair lights up. Magnus should be super happy with that right there. Drawing that Wimpod as well. You can start setting up a Golisopod here to start jumping in and out. And of course, his Acerolas still yet to be seen. He does play them as well in order to stop Marc from poking that damage down and around. 3 Zoroark in play as well. Magnus has had the perfect setup here.
Yeah, this is so you can see from Marc. Marc's face is normally pretty hard to read, but you can tell that this is probably the worst case that he could have imagined. He's looking at this hand going, this has not gone well. Able to take the knockout with the Lele this turn. Marc would need, like I said, a Guzma to take out a Zoroark. And it's just kind of nothing really happening on Marc's side of the board. And Magnus is in full control. If he can find himself double puzzles this turn would be the ideal scenario. Because he wants to be able to grab back the Field Blower. Or, ideally draw into another one, because if Marc does get to lock again, he wants to keep having all of his Zoroarks available to him.
Yeah, I think, absolutely right. I think the only things in this matchup, unless Marc is able to get rid of a lot of DCEs very quickly through a bunch of knockouts, I think the only thing you really want to be puzzling for are Field Blowers and Acerolas here. Acerolas to stop that early damage coming down from Buzzwole, and of course, Field Blowers to keep that ability lock from coming down. We see the Grass Energy onto Wimpod this turn, and then we will see 180 damage on that Buzzwole. Magnus needs to be careful here though. Marc also plays Acerola. Magnus has invested a lot of turns into making this 180 damage happen, and Marc can take it all away within a couple of seconds.
I like that Marc, instead of asking how many items do you have in the discard, he just points to his dice, tracking it going, and then just waits for his opponent to count for him.
There is an Acerola in Marc's hand as well. This could be a very big turn if he is able to play it.
He really needs to see a float stone or a way to retreat. So, yeah, I think he has the float.
Oh wait, no, it's not an Acerola. No, it just looked like an Acerola. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So he manages to get the lock. Again, that's 3 turns in a row. He's managed to find the items. This is why he has to play the many Fighting Fury Belts and as many float stones as he is to make sure he can keep the lock up at all times. The DCE having to go onto the Buzzwole to discard it. Probably not what he was hoping to do in this matchup.
Yeah, probably not the best thing to do with your DCE there, especially with no special energy recovery in Marc's deck. The Buzzwole, non-GX coming up though, and we're going to see a nasty amount of damage here just for 1 energy, 70 damage onto that Lele, taking Marc's first 2 prizes. And the great thing with Marc's deck here, in his last couple of games, we've seen on stream, of course, he's had to be careful when knocking out something early, because of course they could respond with Sledgehammer. However, this time, a straight knockout, Marc can move ahead with these 2 prizes, and of course, Magnus falls behind. Weird decision here to promote the Wimpod.
Well, no, so I think what he was looking for here is he's like, look, if I can get to my DCE in some way, I can actually cross and cut, take the KO.
Okay, yes.
Cross and cut KO this one, which is actually a really nice line he could take. In doing this, he'd then be able to remove the Buzzwole, 2 of Marc's strong energies. We know he's only playing special energy in his deck, which means that the 2 strong energies gone. It's really bad. And actually, a really big deal is, I think is 180 damage on the Buzzwole. It means he can't even attach a rainbow to power this up without KOing it.
Yeah, that is actually very important. And he hits the DCE as well. And the coolest thing about this deck is he's playing on the counter catches as well. So that Buzzwole is very vulnerable at all times. He can even take something just like a simple DCE attached to a Lele and knock out that Buzzwole. Marc needs to try and hit an Acerola and another bunch of energy and stuff like that in order to lift this Buzzwole. Otherwise, it's going to cause him real problems later on in the game.
Yeah, I think Marc was just looking at his hand going, okay, how does this work then? Yeah, there's not that many items in the discard.
We see the rainbow come down onto Trubbish.
There's not that many items in the discard pile for Magnus, which means that there's not that much damage coming in. There's an N this turn with Garbodor in play. It's pretty nice. So it's only 1 knockout gone.
The N here just isn't effective enough yet, unfortunately. 5 cards in hand obviously is lower than what Magnus already had. However, he's hit field blowers already. 5 isn't enough to really stop his game plan from continuing on here. And all he really needs is something to move that Lele out of the active, like that float stone he just got in hand.
That'll
and
do.
Golisopod can come in and do some more damage again. So Magnus leaned back, take a sip of water. He knows that he's got what he needs next turn, and Marc continuing to struggle to make things happen on his side of the board.
Yep, so he does at least find the Trash Lanch, so he has an attacker that is relatively undamaged. The issue is that basically anything on Magnus' side of the board is in a position to take a knockout and kind of continue to push through.
I bet Magnus would kill for a Buzzwole right now just to be able to tap that Jet Punch on the bench.
Yeah.
Or does he play a Tapu Koko promo?
No, he's actually not playing a Koko. That was actually something else.
My heart jumped a loop then. I was about to say that would be really nice if he did.
Koko promo is actually a really important card normally in Zoroark because it's a free retreater. Every time there's a KO, you just promote the Koko and you can move straight in, take a KO.
Well, that Guzma has definitely helped as he's able to take out the Garbatoxin Garb, eliminating that altogether. His trades are now active for at least 1 more turn now, allowing him to get at least 6 more cards in his next hand.
You say at least 6 more, that's an awful lot of cards.
Yeah, at least 6 more on top of any supporters he might have. He's already got a puzzle and a field blower in hand as well. Marc still 180 damage on that Buzzwole. His board state not developed enough to just use an Acerola and not move his board state forward anymore. He's in a bad spot here. Not really much he can do. He can bench this Buzzwole. No elixirs or B-strings in Marc's deck, so he can't actually get those down. And of course, at the minute, it's not looking very good. Whereas you look over at Magnus's board, he's got a Golisopod, he's got a Grass Energy and a DCE on it. He's got 3 Zoroark. He's got a Wimpod ready to go on the bench as well. It could not be going better for him.
Yeah, so the only thing is that it's actually only now level on prizes. He's taken a lot of work, but it's only taken 2 prize cards so far. The next couple of turns, he's going to probably start taking them a little bit quicker. But it's still a case of Marc finding the right pieces, being able to take out, say, the Lele, can actually put him right on the edge of being able to take the victory. 5 items in the discard so far for Magnus means that it's 100 damage. Choice Band would at the moment would still be enough then to take out the Lele with a Trash Lanch, so that's where 2 of the prizes can come from. Marc's now just trying to work out, okay, how do I play to be able to find 2 more prize cards in such a way that we can, without losing the game.
That is the 3rd Guzma, however, that Marc's had to discard, and he does only play 4, so that Lele now becoming harder to access on the bench altogether.
So
it's becoming
something important with the Guzma count, though, is that he is playing the 2 Pal Pad,
The 2
right?
Pal Pad, of
so
course.
he's actually okay to discard supporters throughout the game. He said, actually, the early game, you just sick them all. You don't really care, because any supporters you have to get rid of, if you really need them, you just Pal Pad them back.
Of course, and we see an Ultra Ball in Magnus's hand here. I imagine it'll see the Wimpod pitched, possibly grabbing himself another Golisopod, and that then really would be the perfect setup to Golisopod to jump in and out of, and of course, Zoroark. And then he trades it away, grabs the Mew, and he sees the Mallow as well. The Mallow really good here, as he has 2 more trades in his Zoroark right now. Able to grab some more cards, and of course any ones that he picks if he does wish so. However, the Guzma also a good play here, as he might be able to take that knockout on the Buzzwole on the bench.
Yeah, so this turn he's got a Mallow. It's probably not the spot he would really like to use this turn. It's kind of a little late for him to really want to go for this. But, you know, because he already has basically everything he needs.
Oh, and he hits the second puzzle, and that is exactly what he wants to hit.
Yeah. So, with second puzzle...
so now he can grab 2 cards that he wants. Oh no, he discards them. I was about to say he can grab 2 cards he wants off the top of his deck and 2 from his discard as well. But this double puzzle actually proving quite big here. The Guzma in hand, he can bring up that Trubbish. He's eliminating Garbatoxin completely. That is Marc's last Trubbish.
Yep. So this means that there will be no Garbatoxin in this game. This is kind of the only way that Marc was really able to find a way to recover. Would have been to do something along the lines of N plus Garbatoxin. And that, you know, down to 3 prize cards, that at least gives him something to work with. But as it currently stands, it seems very unlikely that's going to happen. You know, he can still N, but he can't ever Garbatoxin, so he can go to 3 prize cards. But then, it was, you know, when there's 3 Zoroark on board, that very quickly
what is an N to 1 with 3 Zoroark on board? It's really not a problem. It's more like an N to 7, realistically. The Floatstone coming down on that Buzzwole, it's making me very nervous. It's still got 180 damage. Marc was obviously hoping to find some more cards to progress his board state to where an Acerola on a turn wouldn't be so stagnant and would actually allow him to move a board state further, denying Magnus prizes. But now, if he uses the Acerola, his board state's still far lacking behind Magnus's, and it's just not going to work. So we might see the retreat here, the Floatstone on Garb as well, and a Sycamore. The Acerola was in hand as well. That just shows you the fact that Marc didn't play that. He knows it's not right to do. And of course, we'll see if anything else comes down. We've got the Ultra Ball here and the Trashalanch and another Ultra Ball coming down. Oh no, he does have another Trubbish. Okay, I thought that was our 4th one earlier. Magnus definitely still able to use those double puzzles.
Yeah, but he's in a position where he wants to not use them until it's the game-winning turn. He doesn't want to put 2 items into the discard unnecessarily, or the cards he has to take from those double puzzles have to be at least 1 item, or 2 items, right? Because that way he isn't really adding anything to the discard pile.
I just think it would be such a strong position now to actually get rid of that last Trubbish, not allowing Garbatoxin to come down at any point, taking him down to only 2 prizes left, and of course, with that Buzzwole sitting there nice and pretty with only 10 damage left to go.
So, this turn there's no way for Magnus to take a KO on the Garbodor without having to basically pay retreat with the Golisopod, which he doesn't really want to do. He has a Grass Energy in hand. I don't think he has Guzma, but he can obviously grab it fairly easily. He draws into the Golisopod instead, and the Floatstone, so he can actually attach the Grass Energy he took from the prize cards last turn to the Golisopod. Floatstone the active, move in, take the single prize, moving down to 2 prize cards, leaving him in a really nice, easy position to take the game with the heavily damaged Buzzwole already on the bench. So it's kind of a really nice position for him to be in. He basically moved to within 1 turn of winning the first game of this top 8. So he just trades. Obviously he still has the Mew EX, we just haven't seen it yet. So then we can find out the the ways of kind of look at that hand size. This is what happens when you get to Zoroark, and this is where it's a deck that it's really good for top players.
And he has the Acerola to get that Golisopod out of the active with no damage left on it. I personally think that would be 100% correct. He can do that, reattach the grass to the Golisopod on the bench, take that knockout, and leave a fully healed Golisopod in the active. That would be an absolutely game-swinging turn for Magnus, and I can't see any way Marc would be able to claw it back once he's done that.
Yeah, that'd be fine. There's no parallel in play. If it's a parallel from either of them, the Golisopod actually doesn't take the KO. So, it's a case of you can always first impression. Take the KO on this Garbodor. Just keep ticking over, kind of keep moving it forward. This is one of the downsides of you try and pick a deck, clicking hey there's gonna be no Zoroark, and especially no Zoroark Golisopod, and then you get all the way to top 4.
All the way there, and unfortunately it just comes in to ruin your day, and double puzzle comes down. Be really interesting to see what Magnus goes for here. He definitely wants to go for a Guzma, exactly, and then he goes for a Lele as well, wanting access to more in his deck once there is a knockout, perhaps leaving that Golisopod there. And,
so the reasoning for that is that the end to 1 next turn, he doesn't want to draw the puzzles because he'd have to see both puzzles for it to be valid. But the Guzma always wins game, so he can put both the Lele and the Guzma themselves are out to those cards, right, to the Guzma. So what he's doing here is like, look, it's end-proofing himself in a way that says, I put more ants back into my deck. The end to 1 is quite likely to be enough. This deck's fairly thin. Maybe I see it.
Oh, and he parallels himself, completely healing the Golisopod as well. He has taken everything away from Marc there. There is absolutely no way for him to win this game now. Absolutely fantastic stuff from Magnus. And he field blowers away the parallel, allowing him to play stuff back down as well. What a humongous swing there.
So it wasn't even a swing. It was already going it was already pretty much in his favour, but now he's just kind of just gone, right, this is my game. I'm taking game 1.
And that
counts all of his items just to be double check.
That cannot feel good for Marc. Just when he thought there might have been a glimmer of hope with that Golisopod staying the active, he moves it out and parallels himself. That is one of the best players I think we've seen all weekend. Absolutely fantastic from Magnus there.
Well, so it just shows that actually parallel both sides are actually really useful cards. Effects. You can clear your own bench, you can reduce your opponents, and occasionally the reducing of damage can actually be really relevant. We just see a KO on the Trubbish, moving to a single prize card left. 2 more prize cards left. So it's gonna be another legendary treasure.
And we see the mystery treasure come down. He's checking if he's got the Lele. I'm sure he will go for N here to try and... Oh, no, Acerola to pick it up. And Marc also denies. It'll be interesting now to see where the last 2 prizes come from. Obviously, Golisopod having already used the GX attack. It can't one-shot this Lele with a choice band either. It's going to be 2 shots from here out.
But there are enough items now in the discard that Golisopod that we saw take the KO last turn is responded on with the Trash Launch. But Magnus will need now...
And he gets the Mew, the DCE, and absolutely perfect there. That Mew, he held on to it for so long. Such an important card against these Buzzwole decks, but Magnus plays it really well. The Mew, often written off nowadays in this format, simply because it can be responded on so easily, but because he left it so late to the last turn, there was no chance for a response.
Yeah, I think Marc knew he had to find an end that turn, had no way of doing so, because he saw that the Guzma was in hand from the puzzle. Kind of gets into a position of going, okay, right, I guess I'll play the turn out, maybe see a little bit more of the deck, though both of these players probably know the full 60 of each other, and maybe get another few minutes, because he knows that, really speaking, these games are going to go fairly long. That was 20 minutes for the first game, so he might be able to try and, just take his time, make sure that his opponent has everything.
Yeah, I imagine that both players now are going to try and kick in. The last thing Magnus wants is for Marcus to win this game, and then this go to sort of a half-hearted Game 3 / sudden death situation that we have seen before. Quite a few of them at Prague recently when we were there, but Magnus is going to want the same sort of setup, of course. Really good start there that just pushed him into the rest of the game, and of course made it very difficult for Marc to keep up. It'll be extremely... anticipant to find out what both players start.
Yeah, also, something we saw there, though, was Magnus had a very similar start he had in Game 2 of Top 8. Had a very similar start to what he had in Top 8 for Game 2, where he had it all. He set up a board, he managed to kind of get into a really aggressive position very quickly, and oh dear me, that's 3 float stones.
That is 3 float stones in Marc's prizes. That could not be any worse for him. One of the key factors that he's able to keep these Zoroarks offline is, of course, using Garbatoxin, but these float stones all in the prizes.
And both of his Buzzwole GX.
Oh gosh, this is not good for Marc at all.
So
and then
Marc's just legendary treasure, looked at his deck, and he's probably gone, hang on. What's in there? But yeah, having multiple float stones prized, he's already gone through. He's already discarded his beast energy as well. He's gone. I don't want that now. Which is just as well because two of his Pokemon that he can attach that to and get value of aren't there.
Well, he did that without even looking as well, which shows real spidey sense there, knowing they were already in the discard, so he doesn't need it. But we see the mystery treasure coming down for another Trubbish. Marc, his game plan is going to have to be completely different now. With a lack of Garbotoxin, he's going to have to try and force items into the discard, making Trashalanche more effective, and just hoping that Magnus doesn't set up the way that he did last time.
Yeah, but that's really difficult to do because these Garbodor decks are just really good at not needing items. They can just use their abilities to draw, and it was pretty difficult to stop them when they do start drawing through their deck. You know, they can draw so many cards per turn, they just race through and find everything they want.
And we see the DC on Trubbish here, giving Marc access to a retreat next turn, of course. Pelpads, that Sycamore back in. He knows he's going to be reliant on a lot more draw now to get himself into this game. Although it's not even started, we've not seen how Magnus has started either. But Marc already knows that he started on a back foot, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to play this game than it is going to be for Magnus. His starting hand provides a Grass Energy. Is that it, or is there an N in hand by there?
There's
and there is an N.
I think if I lip read Marc correctly, that was an oh my. The fact that it was just Grass Energy and N. We have seen Magnus's deck, you know, whilst he's in the last game and in the second game of top 8 had really explosive starts. We've also seen the other side where he just sometimes struggles to just get everything moving a little bit.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? You're quite used to the association of Zoroark decks being very consistent, being able to get everything they need at every point in the game, and of course, seeing them brick quite often in the last couple of rounds is not something you see very often. We're going to see the Ultra Ball here, though, however. Looks like he's going to be discarding a Guzma and an Acerola. Both these cards able to be fetched out by Puzzle Atari, so not really a massive deal for Magnus to be discarding them this early in the game. He just needs to get down a Lele, and of course he's probably going to want to grab Bridget anyway, ready for next turn.
Well, he may, but you know, he knows the Zoro and the active can never be knocked out. But yeah, so he still wants to make sure he has ways of getting multiple of these down in a single turn. He really is in a position where if he can get to multiple Zoroark, he really never loses the you know, at that point they can draw so many cards, they can get, you know, so far through their deck, they have exactly 120 damage. He gets to protect the Zorua from a Lele DCE or from the Buzzwole, an attachment. You know, so he really kind of protects basically everything, all of his options there. Marc, considering benching the non-checks Buzzwole, but then is just going, but if I do that, then that's kind of my only fighting attacker in this entire deck. How exactly do I kind of start taking KOs? It looks like Marc is having to go for the Acid Spray on the active if he can hit it. But if not, he's attached an awful lot to this first Trubbish.
And of course, you know, Special Energy going into the discard for Marc is the one thing that he probably can't recover in this deck. He needs to be very careful here that he hits the Trashalanche. Of course, they are in deck. There are two of them. He has several outs to get it as well, using Mysterious Treasure. But of course, we will see what he gets off of this N26.
So, I don't see it in hand, and I'm not sure I see an out to it either. He has an S-Ball, so that he's able to draw some cards, just so he's able to, you know, not draw some cards, sorry, but grab another basic. Probably grabbing another Trubbish, or he may here decide that Buzzwole is better. I think he's more likely to go for the Trubbish at this point, because he could have benched the Buzzwole earlier. He thought it was going to be valuable.
I think he wants to save the Buzzwole for a time where Sledgehammer is more active.
Okay. So he's going to go for it now instead. I don't know why he didn't bench it earlier then, if he was going to wind up benching it at some point in the turn. Perhaps his hand looks a little bit better now. But yeah.
See, I'm quite surprised at that. I'm surprised he'd want to bench the Buzzwole, as he probably wants to get the most use out of it as possible through Sledgehammer. It's more a case now of, you know, it's real attacker until he takes a prize to get a Buzzwole GX. The good thing to know that as long as Marc draws from one side or the other, he is going to be able to draw a Buzzwole GX and getting it onto the field. But until that point, he's got to stay in. He didn't hit the Trashalanche. All that Magnus needs on top of this Bridget to make it a good turn is a DCE.
Yeah, the DCE here, punishing the attachment and the miss of the Trashalanche Garbodor. But also, instead of going for, gets the Zoroark, gets a Wimpod, probably another Zoro at this stage. Just so he can establish his field quite nicely. I think he's just going to go through and double check the exact number of Pokemon prize. He probably did a quick sweep and went, oh, hang on, there's more gone here than I thought. And yeah, he's in a position now where Marc, having missed, is now working from behind in what a matchup that Marc himself has said is pretty unfavourable.
Yeah, so working from behind when you start behind isn't exactly a great position to be in. Missing that Trashalanche was probably the most upsetting thing we've seen on stream for Marc the whole tournament. He's getting down this Bridget now. His board has potential to be absolutely fantastic once again next turn. But of course, getting down, the Zoroark comes down on the already established, and he hits the DCE as well in hand. And energy drives for the knockout. Excellent turn for Magnus there. I don't think he could be any happier with it. He started to establish his board when Marc's behind. Marc's shaking his head. He knows that is possibly the worst thing that could have happened to him. And up comes the other Trubbish.
So, yeah, he's really going to have to work quite hard. Yeah, he can take one Zoroark down. But the fact that he has so the thing here is the fact that that's a rainbow energy means that a DCE onto a Zoroark and a full bench means a Zoroark can actually knock out this this Buzzwole. He does take one of the GXs and say, oh, that's where it was. But he knows that it's kind of going to be a little late.
Especially now if this parallel comes down and Marc doesn't have a field blower in response. Oh, no, but it goes to the discard. That's no issues. But yeah, the really surprising thing with this as well is obviously, even though that Zoro was gone, as you said, we've talked about how important 130 HP is throughout the weekend, and of course taking it down to 120 allows this Zoroark to be able to hit into it. The parallel's already up on the other side.
I was going to say, the parallel's already in play. Making it even more difficult because now Marc is just, he's got a bench full of Trubbish, but no way of really pressuring. I don't think Magnus has played basically any items, maybe 2 or 3 at this point. That's nowhere near enough.
He's not needed many, just Ultra Balls really for stuff like that. And of course he hits another DCE, a Wimpod, a Golisopod in hand as well. I'm sure that he'll put down that Wimpod, of course, so he can start setting up another Golisopod. It did so well for him last game, having the 2 of them. And of course being able to parallel away the damage at the end and still come in and take the knockout worked well to win the last 2 prize cards. So only an energy drive though onto the active, not too much going on Magnus' side in the attacking zone, and the Fighting Fury Belt comes down.
Yeah, so the Fighting Fury Belt is really important here because otherwise Magnus was actually in a position where he could knock out the Buzzwole using energy drive, doing 60 damage a turn with the 10 already on from the Rainbow. So actually this keeps it just out of range of this. It does now mean that Magnus would need a float stone to be able to repeat the same thing. Magnus probably really wants to see a float stone anyway, so we can have his abilities. So now it's a Sycamore from Marc, doing what his deck does of just burn through its resources, draw through its deck, just so he can try and find his attackers.
Can't, it's just an ultra. Okay, so he attacks. Not much going on still, just the 40 damage.
It's, yeah.
And Magnus hoping, I'm guessing he doesn't have a field blower in hand, otherwise it would have come down a lot quicker, and the Lele gets a second DCE. We've seen that far too often today, these Leles stacking up the energy, being extremely efficient attackers in these top 8 and top 4 games.
It's almost as if this Lele is actually a really good card.
Yeah, it's almost as if Lele is actually a very playable card. Almost as if. It's really just the Trashalanche to come up here. Again, not sure how many items. If that 2 is correct, only 40 damage coming down on the Lele. And a response able to happen with 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. All Magnus would need is either some way to get an energy onto one of his bench Pokemon, or alternatively another energy onto Lele.
Yeah, so at this stage, I think Marc's just kind of having to...
And he just
has to attack. He doesn't even have anything in his hand.
That parallel is really hurting him. I see the Lele in his hand there, but not able to do anything with it. We also see the Guzma in Magnus's hand. 3 of them to be exact. No real way, I think. Not really much going on in Magnus's hand either. He's just got to attack into this Trashalanch by the looks of things.
He's just really rifling through, trying to see what he's got. He has got a Float Stone in there. Float Stone will be really nice once he finds the grass energy. So he can start kind of retreating back and forth, or we can do it now. You can actually take the knockout on the bench Trubbish if you wanted to, by just Float Stoning back into the Lele and take another single prize. Put him down to 3 remaining. He knows he's going to have to go through odd prizes because of the fact that there are Garbodors in play and not enough GX attackers for him to race through. But now Marc in a really tough spot of going, okay, well, I don't even want to really promote the Trashalanch because it's just too easy to knock out.
And it's my only valuable resource left on my side of the board.
Yeah.
This sort of, we haven't seen it apart from this match so far, but here Marc's deck showing the weakness of not actually playing Beast Ring with these Ultra Beasts. Right now would be a perfect time for Marc to actually get some ramp on his board and start getting some energy down in order to attack with his Buzzwole GX, but due to not having Beast Ring, he's unable to, and we just simply see an Ultra Ball coming down and discarding some more resources in order to move his board state forward. I'm not too sure what else he can get here though. Still a Buzzwole GX prized, and he just gets the Trashalanch.
Yeah, so I think at this stage he's just going to probably try and discard this. I guess he has a Sycamore in hand. Yeah, I think that's what I saw. So he's just going to discard it because he knows that really he's just not going to have time. And even if he does have time, it's not going to get an awful lot of value. Benches the Lele because he knows that actually it's a really nice attacker. He has the option to use the energy drive to try and to KO the opposing Lele with the 2 DC already attached.
And that
Force
looks like
Magnus
what's
to try and
happening.
recover some things. He finds the Float
See
Stone.
the Float Stone. It's 20-40.
120 with the damage already on there. That will be the knockout.
Will be the knockout. Taking Marc. Hopefully he can then pick up his Float Stones. Starting to put a little bit more pressure. Of course, if Magnus is able to hit a Field Blower anytime soon, that would have originally really hurt Marc's board state. But of course now, getting those Float Stones back into his deck, he is going to be able to keep Garbatoxing a lot more alive here.
Yeah, I think because he knows when he does his prize check, he knows that he has prized multiple Float Stones. In fact, the fact that there are 3 Float Stones left means that taking a 2 prize knockout here, it is extremely unlikely he wouldn't draw at least 1. So he can put the extra...
and he just takes the 2 from that side.
So he puts the Garbatoxin line back in, knowing full well that he can find more tools to be able to attach if he wants to set one up in a later part of this game.
And Magnus top decks another Guzma. Them really haunting him here in his hand. He can begin to bench the Zoroark, but that Buzzwole, just for 1 Jet Punch, can knock that out as well and move Marc actually into the leading spot. Garbatoxin really hurting Magnus here. We said that Garbatoxin doesn't completely shut down Zoroark, but it looks like it is doing that job here.
It certainly does when they don't draw any energy, which is what's happening at the moment.
And he pulls the Golisopod out and just promotes another, and then ultimately uses Guzma. He's going to bring up that Garbatoxin with the Fighting Fury Belt on it and just hope that Marc doesn't have a Field Blower with a Float Stone in his hand, and of course, alternatively, a Guzma.
Yeah, but even then, if that's what Marc does have in hand, there's not an awful lot that it does in terms of the board state. He doesn't really want to, if he Field Blowers, he doesn't really want to get rid of the Golisopod's Float Stone, because that means that if he attacks with Lele, they can just DCE, Choice Band, and take out the, use Cross and Cut to take it out, moving to a single prize card left. So he's kind of in a rough spot, no matter how he attacks into this Golisopod. He doesn't have a way of retreating. I think he discarded 1 of the Float Stones, so the only Float Stone left is actually still in the prize cards. So there's actually no way of moving this Garbodor from the active position this turn.
Yeah, that's actually really tough for Marc, because of course now Magnus in a position where he can just hit a Grass Energy, retreat, first impression, and all of a sudden his trade abilities are back on.
Yep. Well, this is something that we've seen though, is Magnus seems to just not have much luck with drawing any energy at the minute. But as soon as he does, this game becomes starts really moving.
Oh, it looks like Magnus just passed really quickly as well. I think yeah. Oh, and the Guzma comes up. That's actually really big here, pulling up that Zoroark, and Jet Punch doing a lot of damage here. Is that the knockout?
I don't think it is, no.
50, 70, 80, no, it's not the knockout. It's 160 on that Zoroark there.
So, the other thing is that Marc hasn't found one of his own field blowers. If he can find his own field blower, he is in a position to kick the parallel, just to give him some bench space, something to work with, so he can put some more things down.
And 160 comes down on Magnus' side of the board. Now, the worst thing for Marc here would be the Acerola or the Max Potion that he plays in his deck.
No, there's no Max Potion in Magnus' list. That was actually from previous drafts of the list. We're playing this, but he's now just playing the Acerola instead.
Oh, okay,
because
right.
the format's moved into very much a one-hit knockout format. So for the most part, having access to an Acerola isn't as important.
I would have swore I heard you and David earlier.
No,
he
has the option. You could have played it, and a lot of the Zoroark lists do, but this is not one of them.
He's going to Mallow here. He's just going to try and put something on the top of his deck to help him out. The Field Blower, definitely one of the ones that he needs. I would also opt maybe to go for a Grass Energy. Yeah, that looks like what's at the front of his deck. Possibly what he's going for here. It's been a rough time for him. He's just been drawing into nothing really. Marc's board state not much better, but he has been hitting the things he needs to progress his board state. And of course now Marc looking in the stronger position. A damaged Zoroark in the active, and not much going on Magnus' bench.
No, so the thing is that having the parallel in its current state means that actually the first impressions aren't straight one-hit knockouts, right? The 20 reduced damage means that he's not actually KOing anything other than the Garbodor and Garbodor. But he's going to Mallow. Didn't see what he took. I think it was a Grass and a Floatstone.
Grass and a Field Blower.
Yeah, so Field Blower on the top, Grass next, so he can draw into his energy and start trying to make some
Marc
pressure.
ends perfectly. Yeah, there was really no other choice there. He had to move those off the top. Magnus hoping he can still draw into something that allows him to move forward a little bit. Even if it is just one Grass Energy, it's still something in this matchup.
And at this stage, we now see, I think, there is a Field Blower.
There is a Field Blower. He hits that,
hand.
and Magnus has got to be happy with that. However, he is only going to have access to one trade ability after this turn, due to the fact of Jet Punch taking out another one, and the Field Blower getting rid of Parallel and the Floatstone here.
So you saw Marc hesitate before playing the Parallel, because he was like, right, okay, if I do this, what happens in terms of damage from first impression? You know, eventually Magnus has to find a way of playing this. Like, there's no way he can possibly not find energy at some stage. Does reducing the damage really help us? But Marc moving to a single prize, even though he really did start this game quite far behind.
And we see an Ultra Ball that allows Magnus to have access to a Lele if he wants it. Of course, the Field Blower is definitely going to come down either way, getting rid of the Garbatoxin, and of course the active Fury Belt. Taking that Buzzwole right back down to 190. Still not enough for Golisopod to be able to one-shot, but allowing a little more room here. And will we see the Ultra Ball for the Tapu Lele?
Something to note actually is that there's a chance that if Marc can get into any energy, he can actually take the KO, because there's two Strongs already on, and he can use Knuckle Impact on a Golisopod. So he needs to find his last Strong Energy or one of his Fury Belts, and he can actually take the KO with it, which would actually be a pretty cool way to take the game. So now it's Ultra Ball, a load more items into the discard for Magnus. Marc counting them, going, but how have you only played this? This many? There's you've gone through most of your deck. How have you done that?
This is magic.
And then he's grabs Tapu Lele for a Sycamore, the Sycamore in this list, so that he can give himself a fresh hand. A very thin deck, I think, for Magnus there, actually.
The Parallel back in his hand again. Maybe not a good idea to play
but there's no energy.
Still no energy.
So he's going to have to trade into it.
He's already used his trade.
Yeah, so missing energy again is actually a huge, huge factor.
And this Buzzwole has got free reign now to be able to knock out the active Pokemon.
If you can see the right attachment, then it really is.
And the Float Stone comes down on Garb, limiting what Marc can do with his
Very
Tapu
thin deck
Lele's.
size for Marc there. Yeah, double checked just to make sure. It looks really quite small. He's trying to decide if he wants to put this on the Trubbish, because and then N wants to get it out of hand, so he can make the attack. Perhaps the Fear Belt going to the active actually would have been another option, because that means if he draws the energy, it's fine. But it looks like...
And Magnus has just scooped, not hitting much there off the N, has decided that due to what Marc took away from his hand, it was time to scoop at the cards, and we are into a Game 3 situation.
Yeah, so it's another game going right down to the wire. All the games so far in Top 8 have either gone to Game 3 or have been super close as they've been going. And we're now getting to the point where Mark's like, probably going, okay, right, that was a really tough game, and I've got to do that all over again, and we have 16 minutes.
We do only have 60 minutes. Both of these decks not really capitalizing on one-shotting either, so it's not even like either player can just go in, get it done ASAP, and get out. Both of them do have a very grindy process in order to take all 6 of their prizes, so it'll just be a case of who can get there first and who hits it more consistently. Really surprised to see Marc come out on top there with the prizes that he had. Fantastically played by himself. Obviously, I think that part of the contribution was the fact that Magnus completely whiffed energy for 90% of that game. After the Lele got some attacks off, that was it then. It was no more. And of course, here we are in Game 3, ready to start now. Both players put down their active Pokemon, set up their prizes, and how about let's take a look at them.
Yep, so we'll be able to get into the next game. There's a Zoroark versus a Trubbish to start, and we're going to go into...
Tapu Lele for Bridget straight away.
Yeah, just immediately throws it down. So we'll have a look, see if we can see what the prizes cards are, see if there's anything interesting in there. Hopefully not 3 float stones or more. 3 DC!
3 DCE on Magnus's side of things. That means Zoroark is essentially rendered useless for half of this game. Gonna be relying on first impression to do a lot of the work here. Gonna have to find that DCE ASAP as well and make sure it gets placed somewhere really efficient. Otherwise, it's not gonna be doing very much for him. Marc, the bane of bad prizes last game. Magnus on the end of it this turn. And of course, we will see who comes out on top. On Marc's side of things, not really much prize there that does a lot of damage. 1 Rainbow Energy could come in handy. But apart from that, nothing much is going to hinder him too much.
Well, it's been in this matchup, he's very rarely really looking to attack with Garb, particularly often. So he's actually okay, really, to have prize, at least one of the Rainbow Energies. Really, his game plan here really should be to try and deal with the Wimpod as quickly as possible, because this just means that he is able to kind of put a timer on Magnus' side, and also it denies him an attacker that doesn't really need the DCE. Having to attach 2 Grass Energy to get a Zoroark to attack would be pretty slow and really not what he's looking to do.
The Buzzwole does come down. That does give Marc the possibility of being able to Jet Punch, getting rid of one of these Zoroarks really early on in the game, and allowing, and he does. He hits the Float Stone and the Sycamore.
Does he see an energy?
He has to see some sort of energy here, surely. And Marc will pull ahead very quickly in this game. He's got another Buzzwole as well. He does hit both the Strong and Rainbow. I'm sure he'll opt to go for the Strong here, putting it down and jumping into the active to knock out this Zoroark.
Yeah, so here he's able to, take a quick first prize and basically saying, right, let's just deal with the Zoroark. The quicker we get rid of these, the happier we are. Because we've seen time and time again, the reason why Magnus is able to kind of win these games is he just draws loads of cards, has loads of options, and get to his field blowers before they need to be there. He's able to, draw enough cards on one turn when he can, that he has the option to keep drawing cards for every following turn.
Magnus has 2 Evo Soda in deck as well. That's very nice for him. Being able to make as much use of trade as he can before Garbodor comes down. He'll probably bench this other Wimpod here. I would say it's a good idea. He needs to rely... Oh, obviously he doesn't know how many DCE are prized yet, though.
No, he has searched his deck. He bridged it, but he did it pretty quickly. So I don't know how carefully he checked his DCEs.
Oh, and the trade gives him Zoroark itself, which means that Evo Soda can now be used for Golisopod. Really, really nice here from him. I think that he does need to rely on Golisopod a little bit more in this game, unless he draws his prizes from right to left, hitting a DCE straight off the bat. He's going to be in a little bit of trouble with his Zoroarks. And what do we see here? We see the Mallow for that last trade now. I imagine that we're going to see, the energies come to the top and a way to move that Lele out of the active.
So he's just making sure. So he's actually taking it's a field blower because he's thinking next turn that should Marc be able to establish the Garbotoxin, drawing into the field blower, lets him kick the tool, then he can trade, grab the grass. If he has a Guzma, he can then use first impression to knock out the Garbotoxin. Again, his game plan here is really stop his abilities being turned off. So no attack. I think this turn.
See the trade. Both those cards.
He already has the float stone in hand, so he actually can.
He can float stone, and we see the grass energy, and that is 120 damage on Magnus' second turn.
Yep. Marc really having to. The thing is that basically I don't think Magnus has played any items or something at this point. Like he's played the Evo Soda, so it's there's 1 or 2 at the very most, which means that this Golisopod is just going to be a case of hit for 50, put 30 somewhere. Then, if it can find a DCE, it can take a knockout with Armor Press, keep itself safe for the next couple of turns. They just kind of start taking knockouts and putting Marc on a really pretty short timer. Golisopod having 210 HP, the format has moved away from the thing, from the format for a long time, and now 190 opposed to 210 being the magic number. Does make it a lot more difficult for a lot of these decks. They're not really aiming to hit 210 anymore. They're basically trying to cap themselves at 190. Ultra Ball.
Gets rid of the Ace Aurora there.
The Ace Aurora was fine. Again, he's actually quite happy to discard most of his supporters because he has his Palpads. One of which is prized, but he still has access to another. Because he basically said the reason why he can kind of win a lot of games is he has more supporters than everyone else, so he can just keep drawing, keep Guzmaing. In theory, he can play more ends than any other deck in the format, right? He has all the ends that he's playing as well, but he can also just play more. He can put them back, keep doing it. He can keep Garbodor to end basically forever. But only 2 items in the discard for Magnus, I think that was.
Not what Marc wants to see. The field blower in hand for Magnus here. The float stone coming off as well. One really important thing to note is with that field blower coming down, he is going to be able to get 4 extra cards in his hand. Another thing is Marc is up on prizes, which means we might actually see Magnus's counter catcher activate here as well to get rid of that Garbodor.
Yeah, the issue is he will need to find a way of moving the Golisopod to do it, because obviously with his DCEs mostly priced, the odds of him drawing into one are pretty slim. So here we see the field blower. In fact, the fact that Marc chose to attach the field blower the turn before, the Fury Belt, the turn before, is actually really quite important. It meant that Magnus got full value from that field blower, and it's actually a really important thing to see. He gets 2 cards from it as well, and not just the one.
I think the right play here is definitely to go for the Ace Aurora, attach the grass energy to the Wimpod, move it into the active, and take that 2 prize first impression. There is a baby Buzz on the bench right now.
There's also a Mew in hand, which means that at some point you can use that to take 2 prizes on the other Buzzwole GX. He can use you can copy the first impression with the Mew at some stage, take a 1-hit knockout on the other Buzzwole, which will then give him access to DCEs, which then means he's able to finish out the game by taking knockouts elsewhere on the board. So, just using the Lele, going through, working out what's in deck, what he wants to grab. The Mew being there in his hand means that he may want to hold on to this. It's not useful right now. His bench is full. It doesn't look like Marc is going to be taking a knockout anytime particularly soon. So, it doesn't need to hold on to it. He could opt to double puzzle for it. We see that very frequently to let you reuse them. He is also playing 2 copies of the Mew. So he may actually decide that this turn he's better off just getting rid of it, put it back into the deck, so it's actually useful later on in the game.
Yeah, I fully agree. The Mew we did see in Game 1 take that last 2 prizes. Mew can be very easily responded on, especially this early in the game when Sledgehammer would activate next turn. So Magnus making the right choice there, not to get greedy and take the prizes with the Lele. However, opting to go for a Cynthia. We are about to see an Ultra Ball come down at some point. We don't, in fact, but we do see the DCE.
Yeah, he's actually managed to find his one DCE that's in deck. So he's actually in a nice position where he can...
And he counter catches up
the
Garb, and we're going to see an Armor Press here for the knockout, taking a prize, and of course minusing damage done to Golisopod next turn by 20, making it ever more difficult for this Buzzwole to knock him out. As well as that, Magnus is in a really nice position now to where the Buzzwole on the bench is damaged, and of course he's just taken a prize, meaning that he might even be able to dodge Sledgehammer altogether in this game, keeping his Zoroarks a lot more healthy and a lot more alive as a whole.
Yeah, so I'm trying to spot the rest of the cards in Magnus's hand. He hand shuffles probably quicker than most people that I've seen hand shuffling. It's quite actually hard to see some of his hand when he's doing that. But Marc's looking at his and he's like, oh, I've got a Beast Energy, I've got not a lot else. So trying to work out exactly where he wants to go. I think he can't promote the damage Buzzwole. He really needs to save the Sledgehammer in case he can force Magnus into taking a single prize at some point. You see the mysterious treasure. I don't know if he has a tool. If he's hoping to grab a Garbodor this turn to re-establish the ability lock. But if he does have the tool, then he must do it in hand, or he's going to try and draw into it using one of his supporters. If he attaches the Beast Energy this turn, he's able to do 60 damage to the active, moving it to 120, and getting ever closer to the game.
Yeah, the N here does move things around. Obviously, Magnus is probably going to be actually this time hoping to hit either Guzma or Acerola. With that amount of damage on his Golisopod in the active, he can fully heal it and move it to the bench. We see the Mew EX in his hand as well as the Guzma, and of course Parallel City as well. It's really important that he plays Parallel City at the right time, otherwise Marc will opt to go for that damaged Buzzwole, most probably healing it. Magnus wants to make sure he capitalizes off those 2 prizes before they go anywhere. And of course he trades away the Bridget in his hand, and we see 2 Guzma off that. Not necessarily what he wanted to see. He already had one in hand, so...
Yeah, he's now trying to work out what to go for this turn. If he armor presses, he's actually not knocked out. He would have probably wanted to see... actually, if he'd seen a choice band, armor press, the Crossing Cut GX actually is for 180, would take a KO on the Buzzwole. So that it is able to at least try and finish it off, kind of push, and kind of pressure a little bit, so that they're able to, basically deny Marc basically any options in this game.
Yeah, I do agree. Obviously, the DCE, there are still 2 prizes. We saw one of them get shuffled in off the N, of course, after Magnus drew his prizes. It looks like he's eyeing up Guzma here, but I'm not too sure what he can go for. He can attach the Grass to the Lele and potentially take the knockout on the Buzzwole with the strong energy on it on the bench. Perhaps even go in just straight for the Garbatoxin as well. There's a few options, some better than others, but I think the Garbatoxin is probably the card that he's going to go for.
Yeah, he has a choice here. He can either, again, try and prevent the Garbatoxin ever becoming a thing. This would be the first one knocked out, making it a little bit more difficult for Marc to try and find things.
However, I do think...
The second one knocked out, right? I think he knocked out the other one.
Yeah, he did knock out the other one. I think the other thing that he could have done here as well is knocked out the Buzzwole on the bench. Again, skipping all the way down to 3 prizes, dodging Sledgehammer as well.
I think he's okay, though, because if you look at the board, he knows that Marc's actually not playing that much energy. In fact, energy in terms of things you can attach to. And having the one Golisopod go down is actually not too bad. Because if he can find himself an N... off this N, if he can find himself a Float Stone, he can probably find a way into a Golisopod or into a Mew, though with the fact that there is now at least 1 more DCE available to him because he's taken 1 from his prize cards. Does an M to 4 for Magnus? Yeah, doesn't look like he has much. He has a Lele and a Sycamore in hand. Okay, so his hand's actually fine. And Marc checking the discard, going, but how have you not played any items? Come on, this is
unfair.
Like, there's a whole third of most people's decks are items. How are you doing this? Grabbing Ultra Ball. Lily, at this stage of the game, not the most effective draw supporter. You prefer to be using Sycamore so you can get to more cards in your hand. So discarding it. The Guzma was useful. Is he plays at full count and he has access to Pal Pad, so he can go through a couple. And we just see the Sledgehammer for a whole load of damage, taking the KO on the Golisopod.
Yeah, and just 2 minutes left now of this game. Both players are going to want to take the last 4 prizes for themselves. Magnus, Sycamore in a way his hand there. The only thing with these decks in sudden death is neither of them are able to have a really strong first turn to win a sudden death in a turn. So both of them relying on how well they're drawing as well in order to do this. So quite worrying if they do go to a sudden death. He does hit the double puzzle here though off the Sycamore. The judge stands up and there seems to be...
It may well be time on the round. I think our timer may be slightly out of sync. So, David, would you like to just quickly explain to us the rules in time in the Top Cup?
It just has less prize cards.
So in this case, Marc will win at the end of 3 turns, right?
Yeah.
So
as it stands, Marc Lutz will win this top 4. Apparently the time is a little bit out of sync. I'm guessing the black die on this side of the screen now showing what...
Yeah, so this will be turn 0 of time for Marc. Just double checking what he's got. Really in the position that he can probably take a couple of couple more prize cards if he gets a little bit lucky.
If this is the rule and the person with a lower amount of prize cards is the person who is able to win the game, Magnus might want to play a little bit more aggressive. He's got a double puzzle in hand. Grab the Golisopod, grab the Grass Energy, hit the Guzma and knock out that Buzzwole with damage on it on the bench, taking himself down to 2 on his turn and just hoping Marc doesn't have the response to get one more.
Yeah, if he's able to get the 2 prizes, I actually struggle to see how Marc can... there's the damaged Zoroark, and there's enough energy on one of the Buzzwoles that I think he can take out the Zoroark on the bench with damage. But I think there's enough damage. I think it says 90 damage on the damaged Zoroark on the bench. Yeah. So if he does that, he can actually hit for 120 with his Jet Punch from the one with the Beast Energy on. So that's how Marc can take a couple of prize cards to keep himself in the lead. And we will basically see what happens. So Marc just going, yep, we are in time, and it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So we see a trade from Magnus.
Hitting the choice band as well, that's quite important here. I've also seen a way that Magnus can actually win this game. Marc unable to take 3 prizes in 1 turn, of course, but can take himself down to 1 prize in order to edge himself forward to win this. So if Magnus does go for the more offensive play to grab the Golisopod, Grass Energy, and somehow get the Guzma for the Buzzwole on the bench, he can take himself down to 2 prizes. Marc then being able to come in and hopefully take a knockout on the Zoroark, taking himself down to 1. Magnus then easily able to take himself also down to 1 by coming in and Guzma-ing up that Trubbish and doing that.
So they'll both be on 1 prize card at the end of the 3 turns.
Exactly.
Which means we have to go to Mark 2 of the sudden death rules.
So
which is next prize wins, which they would anyway, right?
I think that is the biggest out that Magnus has really in order to take 3 prizes as quickly as possible. Marc can get there before him if he's not careful. He needs to be aggressive here. If he's not, then he can actually lose himself the game.
Marc looking at his opponent there going, right, yeah, this is going to be I think both players know exactly what's going to, the aim of the next few turns is going to be, and they've gone, right, okay, so how does this wind up having to happen?
So Magnus has the Grass Energy in hand. He needs the Guzma and the Golisopod here.
He can actually counter-catcher.
He can counter-catcher as well. That also works, but he needs the Golisopod here to take the knockout.
Yeah, counter-catcher is actually nice because he doesn't have to use his support for this turn. I think he has one in hand that I can see. But, either or in this situation is fine.
I really hope he makes the right choice here to be slightly more offensive.
Because I think Marc there making the hand gestures of like, right, okay, I think we both know the plays that need to be made here. There's the counter catcher. You have the Golisopod. You have the grass. You take 1 KO. He needs then. I did see the Guzma actually in Marc's hand there. So he does have the knockout on the damaged Zoroark on the bench.
And we see the grass from Mew.
Yep.
Interesting play there as well, using first impression to knock out the other Buzzwole. However, that makes an easy picking for Marc on the Mew next turn as well.
And actually, I don't think there's any way for him to take the knockout on that Mew, is there?
No, wait. Perhaps.
No, it's.
No, there's actually not
no.
now.
If there's enough items in the discard, he can obviously just use the Crush Land to take the KO, but he needs the energy. I don't think he does, because I think the other one's prized, so the last one would be prized. So I'm not sure if he does have access to the rainbow. But promoting the Trubbish makes me think that he might not. He has a Floatstone in hand, so he can. Lele. Double check. There's one left. Okay, so he has to.
Really tense here now at the end, taking Magnus right down. Magnus will win this top 4 as it stands.
So I think Marc's play here is he's taking the end to get it out of deck. I think he's going to have to Sycamore because he knows that if he doesn't take the KO on this Mew, he cannot win. Because he can't take a KO elsewhere, otherwise Magnus is able to just promote the Floatstone to Lele, retreat, take another knockout on basically anything on Marc's side of the board, other than the Lele's. So it's a Floatstone to the active. Okay, he's going for the end, just kind of trying to deny it. Hopefully see the Garbodor, but he really, really needs to see this rainbow energy.
He needs to see this rainbow energy. Magnus in a position where he can both win and draw the game, depending on what happens this turn. Marc hopeful for this Garbodor. It'll be very exciting to see what comes out of this hand now. If he doesn't get the Garbodor, I think Magnus may have sealed himself a final spot here. The Ultra Ball is in hand, but no energy there for him, and I think that seals us up.
Yeah, it's an extremely tight game. Really need to see an energy this turn. Has no way of taking the KO.
That is only 70. That Mew surviving this.
If he has the Guzma in hand, he may be able to.
He doesn't have the Guzma. It was just a strong, a Floatstone by the looks of things. No, a strong and Ultra Ball, and I think another thing. It wasn't any sort of supporter though. Marc grasping at straws here, trying to find a way, but I don't think there is. Magnus may just have booked himself a one-way ticket to our final spot here. And the Buzzwole comes in. And from what we've been told, this does mean that Magnus is able to win now.
Well, I think he has access to his trades. Magnus was turn 1? No, that was turn
Magnus,
0, right?
No,
that
was turn 0. I think, anyway, from what I know.
It was. I couldn't tell exactly when time was called because it seemed to be called twice. It was one when the judge stood up, and there was one when they both stopped for a moment.
I don't know exactly what happened.
I think Magnus has an Acerola in hand, which would be pretty nice for him. He does actually.
He's just like, can I see my discard? I think I had some puzzles. I need to grab some cards out of here, mate.
No Garbotoxin up. Access to trades for Magnus here. Acerola binned. We'll see 2 off the top. There is a Parallel City. And another Mew.
It's another trade.
Another trade there. The DCE and another Parallel City.
It's a DCE.
Guzma, and he seals the game. And Magnus has just booked himself into the finals. What an exhilarating 3 matches there. Magnus pulls himself in this Zoroark deck that was completely written off before this tournament, all the way to the finals in Europe. And to be honest with you, it's not unexpected. We said all day yesterday, there is this church here of Zoroark. The good players will pick it up and they will be able to pilot it all the way to the final. And of course, Magnus has shown us here today that that is possible.
Yeah, and I think it actually has the chance to go all the way. I'm not entirely sure which of the